Welcome to the second video in the series. This video is looking at building the main function adding global variables to our Noughts and Crosses C++ development. So underneath the function prototypes, give a couple of spaces and then just put globals as a column. So this is where our globals are going to go. Basically what globals are the variables that can be accessed by multiple functions. So if we had an internal variable which would only be accessible for that function, what this does is it allows us to create globals that can be accessed by all of them, okay? Or it can give us values that can be added to all of them. We'll have a look at this in a lot more detail in future series. It's called inheritance, but for now, all you need to know is the globals are accessible by multiple functions. Okay, so we're going to have a constant int called rows, and we're going to set that equal to 3. Semicolon. Basically, this is the number of rows. So obviously we're making a Noughts and Crosses grid which is 3 by 3. So we'll have another one which is a constant for columns or columns. We'll set that to 3 as well. Put these comments in as we go along, just because even though you might understand it now and it's dead simple, later on when you start to come back at the code you might not understand certain elements of it. Okay, so rows if you just tab it out, I just like tabbing it out to make sure it's all even. My LCD keeps it all up. So we've got constant rows, constant columns. This is just setting up the grid. And then we've got a char grid function with 2 inputs, rows and cols. Grid. And this just sets up the complete grid, so not the rows and cols which are here, cols 3 by 3. So we've setting up individually for the columns and the rows, and then this one is just bringing them two things together into the grid itself. We've got an in, so basically constant in just means that that value is generally not going to change, so we know it's going to be 3 by 3, whereas a normal in can take an integer in, so it can take a number in, but that might change. So this one's going to be filled squares. Help if I could type is equal to 0. So basically what we're doing there is we're setting up a filled squares is equal to 0. The int is a variable, it's initialized at 0, and then we'll increment it each time a square is filled up to the point of 9, and then we can work out whether the whole of the grid's filled or not from that. So import is a variable to hold number of squares filled. Next one, we'll have a char or a character input, and we'll just set that equal to nothing. So we'll put single speech mark space, single speech mark, semicolon, like so. Let's get this in line. And then this is basically a var to hold the user input. So this is going to hold like a single character that we type in. So if we input Q, it's going to hold that piece of data for us. And then finally, we've got an int current player. On the keyboard then, I just pressed insert by mistake. So what that does is, see a little square block that appears? That means if I type a letter in, so if I type in E now, it replaces that letter. So if I unpress in, I can change it back to that. It's quite important later on if you accidentally press it. I know the first time I did it years ago, it took me about half an hour to work out what I'd done. So we're going to set that to player 1. So basically this is the global variable, so the var to hold the current player number. And this sets up from the start of it being current player is equal to 1. With these, like we said before, like the naming conventions, the first letter is always lowercase, and then the second letter is capital. With these ones, because the functions, we've done first and second to be capital, but because these are variables, generally the rule of thumb is the first one's always lowercase, and then each subsequent word is a capital. It just makes it easier to read and easier to understand. As long as these are the same, So these variable names could be anything as long as they're matching what we're doing, but we're just keeping it dead simple. So for like rows, we're using rows. For columns, we're going to use columns, etc., etc. Okay. So they're all the globals we need for this development. Now we're going to create the main. So that's the last thing we're going to do in this video. We're just going to create the main. So the main, as we've said, is the function where it runs from. So it allows us to set up the structure and it tells the program what we want to do. Okay. So the first thing we want to do, which might seem a little bit backwards for now, but it's not. So we're going to call it int method to clear the grid. And set that to player 1. So the first thing we're going to do within the main is we're going to call this last function here. And as we said, we're not built it yet, but this function is going to reset the grid for us and go back to player 1. The reason we're doing it at the start, obviously, is you won't need to do it from the first time, but if you're retrying and you're running, it's a good idea to set it up like that. So to do that, we just type in the name of the function, followed by a semicolon. So in open brackets, close brackets, function. So it's going to, when it gets to this line here, it's going to go down to here, it's going to run this, and then it's going to go back up to here, and it's going to carry on, okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a do loop. So a do loop is like a loop of things that we need to do, but because it's a do loop, it does it once to begin with, so it doesn't take a condition. It says, do this once, and then see what happens, and we'll work it out from there, okay? So do at least once, and this function and this set of statements is going to contain the game loop, as we'll refer to it as. So we're going to create a do, open nipple bracket, close, like so. Structure, keep it dead simple. The first thing we want to do is clear the console display and show message. Okay, so inside here we're going to go system, open brackets, inside double brackets, CLS, close with semicolon. So what this is doing is it's going to clear the screen. So the console window we're going to use, like a black console window, which I'll show you in a minute when we get to the end of it. It's going to clear that completely, and then it's going to display something to screen to us. So we're going to use cout or console out, and then we're going to inside double speech marks, welcome to Noughts and Crosses. Okay, so this is the first thing we wanted to do, and then end L or end line, okay, as it's called. So after we've done this, after we've cleared the screen, we put welcome to Noughts and Crosses, we want it to display the grid. So we're going to run the function display grid. Okay, display grid, display the grid to screen. Then we're going to display input. So display the input options. Then we want to, so we displayed the grid, we displayed the input, now we want to check that input. So check player input, and then finally we're going to check status. Like so. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the front of each one of these and double tab them just to get them in line. Okay, so this is basically what we're going to do. This is going to be the game loop of the whole thing, and we're going to clear the screen, show me this on screen, so give me a message to say welcome to Noughts and Crosses, then display the grid, then display input, then check input, then check status. For each one of these lines, the functions, all it does within this main game loop, it goes to this line, then it goes down to the function, which in this case will be display grid, and then it runs that function, and then it goes back to the game loop and then continues as we go along. Okay, so we've got the do loop, and we want this to continue while, and then just in brackets, 2 upper input is not equal to, and then F in single speech marks. So we're going to do this while 2 upper just means whatever character we put in, make it higher case. So if we type Q and it's a lowercase q, or F in this instance, lowercase f, it'll automatically put it up to a capital F and take that as our input. This is taking the variable from the input section we're going to have in a minute, which I'll refer back to as we go along, and then that means not equal to is not equal to F. So basically, if we click F, it's going to cancel the game and close the game. So as long as that does not happen, then the game loop needs to continue. Okay, so basically checks that the player hasn't pressed F to quit. Okay, so that is our game loop. So neaten it up a little bit, make sure the brackets are in the right place. So we've got the global variables that we've done this video, and then we've set up our main. Okay, so I'm just gonna add this to the end because I prefer it when the comments are on the same line. In videos like this, it makes it a bit easier. I think just to read it, that's all. You can put these literally however you want. That's totally up to you. It's not. It's this is like a me preference rather than anything else. But this one can stay the same because it's. Actually, just go on the right one. See, there's not a comment here as well. This is a good way of going through as well. You can see the comment. Print string to screen. Cool. So we've got the comments in the right places now. We've set it up. Go along. Highlight. You'll see I'm quite OCD like this, but it just helps out later on. It's a good way of looking at it. The only ones that really should be before it are the functions, because it just explains what the functions are. So we've gone through the main loop, we've set it up to go to different functions that we need, and we've set some global variables up. So that's the end of video 2. Thanks for listening.